It's always easy to look at spring training for a baseball team and say, oh my gosh, this guy did so well this spring, he's making the team, he's really, really good.
Wow, 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 wow.
For the Mariners, we've seen players like Mariner Mojo or Bryce Miller show out really, really strongly this spring. And while we all know that Jarred Kelenic is going to make the team and be the left-handed platoon with AJ Pollock, one player that is kind of a dark horse for the Mariners this spring is Evan White. Now, Jerry Dipoto said that Evan is coming into spring training in quote-unquote the best shape of his life sort of deal, where he's just healthy. He is healthy for the first time in years. And from what we've seen from just like backfield videos and even Evan's home run earlier this spring, he does look really, really good, but the biggest thing for Evan White is keeping him healthy. We know that he is possibly one of the best defensive first basemen in baseball history. Evan White is that special of a player over there at first base. But it's his ability to hit, which is really going to make or break for him when the Mariners head north to Seattle. But there are some rumors swirling around that the Mariners actually may have a few more roster spots open than we originally expected. According to Locked On Mariners, Ty Dane Gonzalez, the homie Ty, he said that their source said there's a decent chance that Tommy La Stella doesn't make the team. Obviously, La Stella's been dealing with that hurt elbow. He had terrible Achilles injuries the past few years, and we have not seen him yet this spring. They originally said 4 or 5, maybe 6 days for Tommy La Stella before we see him in games, but it's been longer than that, and Tommy La Stella still has not seen the field for the Mariners. Now, what La Stella was going to do for the Mariners is basically be kind of their de facto DH, while also being able to play second base, first base, third base, that sort of deal, kind of as a utility infielder. One of the reasons we may have seen Sam Haggerty over at second base so often this spring is that they don't think that Tommy La Stella is going to be ready. So with Haggerty at second base and the possibility of also Dylan Moore not being ready, not being able to take over at bats for Colton Wong or for JP Crawford or even Gino at third base, the Mariners need someone who can kind of be a utility for them. And while Evan White is really truly just a first baseman, we've also heard he could be taking fly balls at some point this year. And when he was first drafted, it was said that he could play center field in the big leagues. So yeah, having Evan White on this team would do a lot for you. And that does not count out players like Cade Marlowe or even Colin Moran or just any of the guys who are kind of on the bubble for the Mariners. But in terms of Evan White, obviously he already won a Gold Glove in his career and he's seen big league pitching, so you may want to give him that opportunity, and you know what he can do defensively. And let's not forget, the Mariners are paying Evan White more than they're paying Tommy La Stella and Colin Moran. So I don't necessarily know if the money plays a factor here, like, hey, we're giving this guy a decent amount of money, we maybe don't want to put him in the minor leagues, but you are paying him a decent amount of money. If Evan White can make the team, he can play first base and have Ty France DH for a lot of the days to keep him healthy as well. And listen to this quote from Jerry Dipoto about Evan White saying what he could do if he was on this team.
That could be Evan White, and it's a guy we're not really counting on coming into spring training, who I think has looked outstanding in the early going. Again, trying to temper the enthusiasm, but he changes our team defensively. If he hits, and he doesn't have to hit 4th or 5th, he can hit 7th or 8th, and if he hits, it just changes the way our team is perceived and the way our team functions.
So hearing from Jerry here, he says that Evan White doesn't need to hit 3rd or 4th. He can lengthen the lineup down there in the 7th or the 8th spot and be the first baseman for the Mariners. A defensive whiz at first base for the Mariners, it would make the infield that much better. And while Evan White doesn't necessarily fill out what Tommy La Stella could do, he does make the infield better, and God forbid if the Mariners need to put Ty France over at third base for a day, or even second base for that matter, Evan White could allow that to happen. I don't love it, but I mean, it could happen. It would be ugly, but it could happen. Looking at Evan White's 2020 percentile rankings, this is his last somewhat full season in the big leagues. Obviously it was a shortened season. This is the year he won the Gold Glove. He was 90th percentile in max exit velocity, 85th percentile in sprint speed. His hard hit percentage and his average exit velocity and his barrel percentage were all really, really good. His strikeout numbers weren't great. Of course, first year in the big league, Evan White struck out a lot, but you can see how good he was defensively. And until 2020, Evan White has always been a guy that has hit down in the minor leagues. In the minors, he's a career 288 hitter with a 356 OBP. He hit 41 home runs in 262 games. Evan White's ability to hit has never been in question, but can he do it at the major league level? Well, maybe. That's the hard part. But let's say, for example, that Tommy La Stella is not ready. Let's say Dylan Moore is also not ready. That leaves you with Sam Haggerty as your true utility guy. And while you could put Sam Haggerty at second base or in the outfield, that's pretty much the only place you can put him. And Evan White, you can put him at first base and maybe put him in the outfield. We haven't really seen him out there, so who really knows? And like I said, it would possibly give you an opportunity to move Ty France around the infield, but we really don't want that to happen, and Ty France definitely cannot play shortstop. So this does not solve the Mariners' problem of a utility guy, but overall, Evan White is a player that I honestly did not have making this team out of spring training, but based on what we've heard from just Jerry Dipoto and people in these interviews, as well as how well Evan has played, I would say it's certainly a possibility. And of course, if someone like Dylan Moore and Tommy La Stella are both out, then that opens the door for maybe a Cade Marlowe they can put in the outfield and have Teoscar Hernandez DH on some days. And of course, don't count out a trade or a free agent signing. As for who that free agent or maybe a trade could be, you never really know. Of course, we just talked about trading Chris Flexen the other day and sending him to maybe the Padres. We've talked about them getting Ha-Seong Kim in return, but I really don't think that's going to happen. But overall, Evan White is kind of a dark horse for this Mariners team. If he can make this roster and be a little bit above average, maybe like a 105, 110 WRC plus guy, then the Mariners are that much better of a team having him at first base defensively. And being able to keep Ty France off his feet for some DH days makes Ty France that much more valuable to you as well. There's still a lot of spring left to play, and it'll be interesting to see how Evan White looks over the next few weeks, but honestly, I won't be shocked to see him make the majors coming out of spring training. Would you guys like to see Evan White on the opening day roster? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you guys want to hear about our Chris Flexen trade ideas, we have that video linked on the screen now. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.